Shalom, welcome to another episode of Inspiration from Zion. I'm Jonathan Feldstein, and I have the privilege of being your host, coming to you from the Judean Mountains here in Israel. I like to refer to it as the original Bible Belt. Inspiration from Zion is the program of the Genesis 1, 2, 3 Foundation, whose mission is to build bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. I pray that you will find this all of those. Through this program, we're excited to connect you to people and stories in and relating to Israel to give you a window to look through, experiencing aspects of life here that you might not otherwise know about. We want this to be interactive, so please be in touch with us at inspirationfromzion@gmail.com and send along any questions and any comments about any topic anytime. Or you can follow and like Inspiration from Zion on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and reach out to us at genesis123.co. Stay tuned until the end of the program, where we're going to share an exciting opportunity for you, and please feel free to share this with others who will also find it of interest. Today, I'm super excited. I've literally just met today's guest face to face, figuratively, for the first time. We've been texting back and forth. She comes to this conversation with such an uplifting message, and I'm excited to get to know her, and I know you will be as well. It's also super timely because Ashlee Bond, I'm actually getting emotional thinking about it, Ashlee. Like you're one of Israel's Olympic athletes. You just finished competing this week. Unfortunately, and we'll talk about that, unfortunately, a little sooner than intended, and it's fascinating why that's the case as well. But this year especially, it's not just a novelty to have a cool person who's one of Israel's Olympic athletes speaking, but this year especially in Paris, where we're 10 months into a war here in Israel, and that's impacting all Israelis all around the world, and Jews and Christians all around the world. And I say that specifically because of who you are and what we're going to get into, but also specifically the threats and the accommodations that need to be made this year for the Israeli Olympic team and even Israeli tourists who are going to cheer on all of our athletes. Ashlee is born in America, like myself. She has an Israeli father, like myself, and took Israeli. I don't know enough of the details, but I want to get them. Took Israeli citizenship. Actually, Ashlee, it's very interesting that we're speaking today, because today is the 20th anniversary of me and my family making Aliyah. They
I
all
love that.
took citizenship, and I was a citizen from birth as well. But I'm excited to have you, and you're. I don't know a lot, but this has been your second Olympics representing Israel in equestrian competition, which is also unique. And if I'm not mistaken, it's only the second time that Israel has had an equestrian team represented. 3 years ago in Tokyo, and this year in Paris. So Ashlee, there's a lot we're going to unpack and get to know. But really, first of all, thank you for taking the time today, and welcome to Inspiration from Zion.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. I'm so excited to be here and speak with you about all things, faith and Israel and in between. Yeah, so let's get going.
Let's get going. So you live in the U.S. You were born in the U.S. Your father is also Israeli. He was born in Haifa, like my father.
Hmm.
More than a generation. I guess I'm more than a generation older than you, so you could probably be one of my kids.
Well, I don't
And
know about that.
I think so. I think so. But my father was born here in 1937, and I refer to him as an original Palestinian because back in the day, it was only the Jews here in Israel who were referred to as Palestinians.
Yeah,
And yeah, actually, do you know where did your father grow up? Just coincidentally?
he grew up in Haifa, and then he immigrated to the States when he was 12 with his mom.
It was 12. Okay. My father came to America when he's 17, hardly knowing a word of English.
Yeah,
And
same.
yeah, and then that began my path until exactly 20 years ago today, coming back. At what point, like what I can speak about my own Israeli identity before coming here,
Hmm.
but tell us about your father and your own identity here and what made you forget the competition. and being part of the Olympic team, wanting to become an Israeli?
Yeah, so my dad, obviously, my Safta immigrated actually from Hungary to fleeing the World War II, and they went to Italy. She met my grandfather there in Italy, had my uncle, and then immigrated to Israel from there and had my father in 53. Um, and then she, yeah, took my dad when he was 12 and moved to the States. I think, my dad became an actor. So he was originally born Shlomo Goldberg. And then it was changed to Steve Bond, which is funny. And then he ended up being in Los Angeles and, obviously fast forward, met my mom, and she's, born in Sacramento, California, totally, from European descent, German, Swedish, and Christian, which I don't think they ever spoke about until they had been dating and living together, actually. And anyway, so I think my dad, obviously, his family was still in Israel, in Haifa, and when they had us, my brother's 6 years younger than me. Um, I think with being a Christian, Jesus being born in Israel and his whole life was in Israel. And I think that part of me, it was always a really deep connection. And my dad had um, become I don't know how you would phrase it, but a messianic Jew, I guess would
Okay.
be a
Okay.
term. He found the Lord on his own when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, like a couple years after my mom and him got together. And that's actually an incredible story on its own. But I think just having, a really, like, he is a real Israeli. Like, his character, he's super strong and passionate and a fighter and the best heart, and just, um, yeah, like, just embodies, like, I think the core of like who Israeli people are, who Israelis are. And I definitely got a lot of that character. Um, so I think in that way, when we would go, to my cousins, who one of my cousins moved to the States. My dad's brother eventually had immigrated to the States, brought his family. So his daughter, raised her family here in 30 minutes from where we grew up. And her brother actually stayed in Israel. So my cousin Oren is still there with his family. Um, but Shelly is 30 minutes from us, and we would go for dinners and all the things, and the whole mishpucha. And I always felt like this is like who I am, like I like identify with like the Israeli, like that mentality and that fight and for fierceness. I always have. So on top of like Jesus being, the reason that I love Israel so much, I also in my core feel like I just always identified as an Israeli American,
Yeah.
So,
But
and my
but
dad never taught me Hebrew, sadly. I always give him,
oh, me
you
too.
know, oh, I was so I'm so annoyed with him about it. But it's fine.
Do you know how
Yeah.
to say horse in Hebrew?
Yeah. Seuss.
Seuss, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
You,
I know
you
like a
can
few words.
you can come here and my grandchildren will teach you all the other animals.
Great. It would be
Okay.
super. I'm really bad at
Okay.
it.
It's really funny that you say that. My father left Israel the year after your father was born. He was 17. He had an
Okay.
accent until he died.
Okay.
And but also was you could never take the Israeli out of him. The
Yeah.
first time I came here with him, I was a teenager, and that's when I decided I wanted to live here. But for me, I saw him, that was in the 80s. He hadn't been here in over 20 years, but it was like a homecoming.
Hmm.
This is where he belonged. And he went back to his old neighborhood in Haifa and saw some of his neighbors, reunited with his childhood best friend, who I became friendly with, their family. So, yeah, it's interesting that you say that, and also impressive because your father was that much younger than my
Hmm.
father. He was only 12.
Yeah.
And you can lose a lot of cultural identity when you move at any age.
Yeah. No, he
Amazing.
definitely didn't lose any of that. He's a Israeli through and through, and I love that about him. And I definitely get what you're saying. When you go to Israel, I just even feel when you're flying in, you feel, sorry, my daughter's, okay. Um,
Mhm.
I feel like as you fly into Israel, you get this like, I get this like emotional, like feeling of just the presence of the Holy Spirit. It's really incredible. I haven't been in the last 2 years, or I went right before, so it's been 3 years. I went right before the last games. And we would have gone again had obviously the war, it's,
Yes,
everything going on. Um, but yeah, it's just so spiritual for me. Every time
sure.
I go there, it's overwhelming actually.
which
So yeah,
which
I
you
love it.
have a double dose of as an Israeli, as someone whose father was not just born here, but who has family here, and obviously you're in touch with them. But even you use the Yiddish version of the Hebrew word mishpacha, which is family. You're talking about, but also as a
Yeah.
Christian. And
Yeah.
I just had a friend who left here. It was only her second visit, and she refers to Israel as her spiritual homeland, even though she
Yeah.
wasn't born here. And so you have that double dose. Let me ask you about that because you've already tipped the one of the super unique things about having you here. You are a Christian, and
Yeah.
I'm guessing I didn't research it, but you probably know this. Are you the first and perhaps only Christian who's ever represented Israel in the Olympics?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, in our sport, I don't know about in all the sports. I know for sure in our sport because every one of my teammates made Aliyah. Um, I know, but yeah, it would be an interesting thing to see if in every sport for Israel, if I'm the first Christian Israeli. I would hope not, but I maybe.
Well, there's so few Christians here that it's
Yeah.
actually probable. I asked my son, my youngest, who loves soccer, and at the beginning, when Israel was still before being eliminated, we went
Hmm.
relatively far in whatever division that we were in. I asked if any Israeli Arabs were part of the team, which is not improbable because there are 1 in 5 of us are Arabs here,
Right.
and many are really, really good at soccer. And he didn't know the answer, and we didn't continue the conversation. But among Israelis, about 10 million of us, there's a very, very small number who are Christian. So you might be. We'll have to check that out. But I'm gonna,
Yeah.
for the moment, I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect. I like
how
it.
did
I like being the first.
how did you come to faith? I mean, it's a fascinating story in terms of your parents, but what about you and yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was really blessed, or I feel really blessed, and I'll definitely get emotional through this whole thing because every time I talk about the Lord and my faith, I do. But I just knew as a young child before I can even remember. I mean, I just had this overwhelming um, certainty that Jesus was who he said he was, and he was my father. And I believe I have a funny story about one of my best friends. She's Jewish, and we went to school. We were best friends since we were like 3 or 4 years old. And I think when I was 5, 6, maybe 7 at the oldest, um, I told her, I was like, I can't be your friend if you don't believe in Jesus. Like
Wow.
I was really just new and was going to push that as a young kid. Obviously you're like, I'm going to push that on you, you need to know Jesus, and I sent her home in an I love baby Jesus t-shirt one time, and her mom is Jewish, and she was like, opened the door, was like, what are you wearing, like funny, little kid, like you don't know, but um I just, yeah, my mom also was blessed with that. And we've had like supernatural experiences, each of us actually in our family, which is really, really special. Her father was also a really strong believer from the time he was born. And then my dad came to it on his own, um, randomly, actually. Well, not randomly, because my mom had been praying for him every day since they got together, but never said anything. And
Uh,
then 2 years in, he knew, he was in acting class, and Miguel Ferrer actually, he said, can I go to church with you? And my dad was a very angry, had a lot of stuff go on in his childhood that caused a lot of issues. He was an alcoholic and all these things. And um, He's now like sober for over 10 years and it's amazing. But he had asked Miguel if he could go to church with him. And Miguel was like, sure. And I guess when they were there, they asked if anyone wanted to accept the Lord. And he was like, my hand just started to raise. And then he ended up accepting Jesus and he came home and was like, I need to talk to my mom. He's like, I need to talk to you. I don't know how you're going to take this. And she was like, okay. And he's like, well, I went to church today and I accepted Jesus into my heart. And she started crying
Yeah, I'll bet.
and was like, I've been praying for you every day. So sorry.
No, that's good. I
Yeah.
appreciate the
So
emotion and I
it's,
appreciate the honesty.
yeah. So it's really, it's beautiful. And definitely the Lord has been, had his hand on our family. My mom, she's, makes movies in in Hollywood and, pioneered the whole faith-based Christian side of the film industry and has, brought hopefully a lot of people to the Lord. So it's been really cool. And then my brother had the opposite experience from me. He believed and had really strong faith and then he lost it and just recently has come back around to his faith, which is beautiful as well. But that's a huge other story. So
So let me ask you a question.
yeah, but
Using an equestrian metaphor, being a Christian on the Israeli Olympic team, has there been a hurdle for you? You like that?
definitely I felt it, not from my teammates so much, but just from, well, other aspects, I guess you could say, where in the beginning it was the Jewish team. They would phrase it as we're riding on the Jewish team, and I always felt like, well, not everyone who's an Israeli is Jewish, and I'm one of the higher ranked riders on the team, and has won a lot for Israel. So I felt a little like a bit of an outcast at times, but I think in the last while, I felt like more embraced and more, not that I wasn't accepted, but more like we just don't talk about that, kind of thing. But now I feel like empowered that I am accepted by the Jewish Israelis that are on my team, and the people that are around our team, and I don't have to be ashamed to share, my faith if called upon to do it. Um, Whereas at the last games, I felt like I wasn't allowed to really do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it definitely, maybe it's more of an internal struggle. And maybe I'm putting a lot of that on myself that wasn't there, but I think I'm pretty good at reading situations and like the
Yeah.
vibe. And that was the vibe that I had gotten for a while.
Well, it could be a combination of the both. I'm glad to hear the evolution of that, but a combination of the both, your own feeling, but also how Israelis respond. And even if it's not in a negative way, because there are so few Christians here, most Israelis don't even know Christians, don't interact with
Yeah.
Christians. One at the beginning of the war, I know I'm not fast forwarding, but to relate a story, we were involved through our Israel Emergency Campaign in relocating almost a whole community near the Gaza border to a hotel in
Wow.
Jerusalem. And through generosity of Jews and Christians all over the world, we paid for about a month for them to stay in a
Wow.
hotel. And these are all hardcore Middle Eastern Israeli Jews who never
Hmm.
met Christians before. But when
Wow.
told, they could have come with it with a negative stereotype, but when told that most of the donors that paid for them to be able to stay with their kids and grandchildren in the hotel for a month were Christian, they were overwhelmed with support and it didn't have to go that way. So
Yeah.
it's a gradual breaking down. I was having a conversation with someone else recently as well. Ashley, I want to continue this, but I want to take a really, really quick break
Yeah.
and then come back and pick up and then specifically talk about your experiences in Paris. Okay,
Cool.
let's just take a quick break.
Sounds good.
Okay. Um, well, actually, you know what? I didn't even I'm looking at some notes that I jotted down, but this is a really interesting one that just came to mind. What in your experience being on the Olympic team have you learned about Israelis in general and Jews in specific?
Um, I just feel like everyone's like a family. I feel like there's just this, you're Israeli and you're in. Like, at least from when I've been at the games. The whole Israeli delegation was just so welcoming and warm and exactly how I know my family in Israel to be, my family that immigrated from Israel to be. Like I said, the mishpucha, because my Savta spoke Yiddish. And so,
Tafta, by the way, is grandmother. I was going to say
yeah,
that before.
yeah.
Right. Some people don't know that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. She passed when I was 13. Um, but sorry. Still, still emotional. She
Yeah,
was she would be really proud. Um, sorry.
she would be. She'd be pinching your
Uh,
cheeks and saying stuff in
I
Yiddish.
know. I know. I also felt that that was also a reason that I wanted to represent Israel. She loved Israel so much. Yeah. Um, anyway, told you the whole emotional thing. It just never stops when speaking about Israel and family and faith and all of that. But yeah, just very, very welcoming, like a big family. And it's really, I just feel at peace when I'm there.
Over and above your own coming to faith, can you point back to a specific time or incident where you actually had that feeling of really feeling like you were Israeli even before you took citizenship?
Um, I think because my Softa was there with me since the day I was born, and she would be over like 3 times a week and pick me up from school, a couple times a week and stuff like that. I just always felt that way. Like I always felt um that I was Israeli, and I had that in my house,
Yeah.
since the day I was born until I was 13 or 14, she passed. Um, and she was like a really big influence in my life.
What food
So,
did she cook that you loved?
oh, I still make her food: schnitzel, Israeli salad. She did an amazing palanchintas, which actually probably comes from her Hungarian background, but uh also the grilled peppers that I do and then you grill the peppers and then you soak them in the olive oil and vinegar and garlic. That the stuffed cabbage was one of my
Oh
favorite things
yeah.
she would make. Latkes she would do great. And she had this amazing recipe for chicken soup that my mom and I still make all of these
Amazing.
recipes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, it's really good. And my dad loves the potato salad she made, and my mom still makes, because my mom is a really good cook, and fortunately I got that gene, so we can make some good food.
How great.
Yeah.
So now, as an Israeli, this year, you're getting ready to come to Paris to compete. I want to talk about what went on there, but you experienced something that Israelis in general and Jews in specific have been experiencing, well, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Hatred, anti-Semitism, and of course, the irony is that you're not even Jewish.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about that. What happened, and how did that? Well, I'd like to unpack whatever you're able to tell in terms of
Yeah.
how that affected the Israeli team this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm honored to have been able to experience everything my, fellow Jewish Israeli teammates were, because I want to be in it with them. And I got a letter from a hate group, terrorist group, before I came to Paris, pretty much threatening my life, threatening, if I step out of an airplane to France or walk on the streets, they run the streets and run all of it, and blood will run through the streets, just like in Munich, um, and named me personally. So me and I believe 14 or 16 other Israelis got that letter, and then a few got like their obituaries sent to them. So that was definitely eye-opening, and I had to really just pray and rely on my faith to, keep me strong. I am a strong person, but I've never dealt with something like that. So it definitely um, tested my personal strength. The security that we had the minute I got into France, we were with armed guards all day, every day. We could only go from the venue to the village. In the Olympic Village, it actually felt, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest, because we had a meeting um, a month or so before the games with a psychologist preparing us for what could happen. And, if we, get confronted by other athletes or whatever, we need to, take the high road and all the things. And so I was prepared for people to be spitting on us and yelling at us and all of these things. And I have to tell you, it was the complete opposite. I don't know if it was because of our sport or what, but in the village, I never once had any negative experience. I actually had very positive experiences, people trading pins with us. Um, Outside of the village, the minute we would walk, like if we were leaving the village to go to the venue, our guards were there waiting for us in our compound, which was a compound. We didn't have any Israeli flags on the building we were staying in. You needed a code to get in to our building. I mean, like bars, like you're in a prison.
And that was
Code to
only
get
for
in,
Israelis?
only Israelis. Everyone else was normal.
That's sick. I mean,
Yeah,
it's great, but it's sick.
it's sick. So we had to go through, so code to get into our locked area, and then turn left. You go again, a door that you have to be buzzed into. And again, you go through facial recognition. Once you get through that, you go through a body scanner. And then there's the guard sitting with cameras, video screens, because there's cameras literally on every street around our entire building that they're watching 24/7. And then you go in through a small, like little, you turn left and the elevator's right there. So it was highly secured. Like nobody was getting in there. And then our building that they put us in had like the metal, like we had a balcony, but to close the windows, like you had normal doors, but then you had metal, like if you wanted, you didn't
Oh,
have to, but you had like metal enclosures as well, to just fully be closed in. So and then the minute we stepped out of the Olympic Village, we had obviously all of our guards. We would ride the bus because we had our specific equestrian, like each discipline, each sport has their
yeah.
own bus to go to the venue. So our guards, two or three of them would ride on the bus with us. And then we had police escorts that would always follow us or be in front of us as well as behind us, with their sirens and all the things. The minute we got to the horse venue, we were shadowed the whole time with between 5 to 6 body armed security guards all day, every day.
That's
Follow
so
us
so
to the
the
bathroom.
so
Yeah.
the security team was arguably many times larger than the Olympic team itself.
Yeah, there's four of us, and there was no less than 5 security guards with us all day, every day.
Wow. Did you
Yeah.
feel, I mean, it's wonderful to say that you were in the Olympic Village and you didn't have any negative experiences
Mm-mm.
and you're visually identified as Israeli and
Yeah.
sharing the pins is a really great example of how people were receptive. But did you feel unsafe anytime at all or concerned? Did you have to actively get that out of your mind as you were going in to compete?
No, that was another part I think I skipped over. But in the village, I felt like all the athletes, like I didn't have um the feeling of being unsafe. And in the village, we weren't shadowed. I mean, maybe we were, and we were told that we just won't notice them. So very possible that our
Yeah.
Mossad agents were there and I just didn't notice. But in the village, I felt extremely safe. We walked around like normal. At
Good.
least it felt that way. Outside of the village, obviously not. But when I went to compete in the ring for the first time on day one for the team, I was expecting, because the stands were completely full. I mean, there was, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000 people there.
Yeah.
It was full. I was expecting boos because they said to expect it. Um, when they announced my name, I think the whole stands erupted in
Wow.
applause and cheering
That's great.
and Israeli flags. And I got emotional.
I'll
Like
bet.
even before I started jumping, I got emotional. And I had a really good round and we made it into the finals. And when I finished my round, people cheering. Like it was, there wasn't
Wow.
one negative. And then when I went, as my family, I couldn't see my family in the venue because they didn't have accreditations. My parents did, my husband and my daughter didn't. So, and my sponsor, who's one of my sponsors, she's Israeli, Hilla and Ellie, they're Israeli, and they had come as well. So I had to go out of like the secured area to the general public where all the people um, that were watching were. And I asked the security if that was okay. And he was like, yeah, but just stay close to me because we didn't know what to expect. And I was going out with like thousands of people. Um, and I have to tell you, I was being bombarded by people wanting to take my picture and shake my hand and
Wow. That's so nice,
congratulate
Ashlee.
me. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And it just inspired me and just made me feel like, you know, there are haters, obviously. There are the misinformed people in the States that think free Palestine from the river to the sea is what they should be backing, which to me is just very sad. Because they're very uneducated or they've been, brainwashed by the propaganda. Um, but the majority of the people I think are with us. I just think the people that are against us are very loud. I think there's not as many as are for us, but I think they're just very loud. So I was really blown away by the support we had.
In Tokyo, what you're describing specifically in terms of the building and the compound, not just the physical security people, but a lot of preparation went into that. It
Yeah.
certainly wasn't like Munich where they just happened to put a bunch of Israelis in an apartment together. Did you have in Tokyo similar kinds of security, or was this on steroids?
Yes and no. So this was definitely way more. Tokyo, I think because of COVID, um, everyone was kind of locked down to begin with, but we were in a building with other teams in Tokyo. So they did have facial recognition, but it didn't happen until we hit. So they stopped the elevator 3 floors below where we were all living. Or sorry. So the bottom floor, like I think we were on floor 12 or something. So at 11, you'd have to get off. And then 12, 13, 14, or whatever it was, the 3 floors above that floor were all the Israeli athletes, and they locked the elevators so nobody could get to our floors. When you got off at floor 11, I would say you had to go through facial recognition, one, and then there was a guard sitting there, and that was it. And you didn't get, they had like little tracking things that you could take when you were going outside the village so that they knew where you were at all times, but you didn't have to. And we didn't have armed guards like we did, nothing like that. I was pretty free compared to um, like everyone else. Like we were kind of all in the same boat. We were a little more, watched, but it wasn't anything like what we dealt with this time.
You alluded a little bit. I mean, I guess the word is maybe it's not political, but to those the Israel haters, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're misinformed. What's your message
Yeah.
to them? What if someone's watching or somebody who doesn't know, but just
Yeah.
think Ashley's a really cool novel woman who's a great athlete and blessed in so many ways. But what's your message to tell to for people to understand what's the reality?
I think I'm one of those people that I don't watch the mainstream news because I believe they're all corrupt and they're all corrupt and pretty much owned by the same, like both sides. I'm neither Democrat or Republican. I'm a conservative person at heart, but I'm an independent, a moderate, so I really just think that there's an agenda like because of my faith. It's good versus evil. It's the devil versus God and Jesus. And it is so obvious these days unless you have scales over your eyes, which a lot of people do, sadly. But I think that the media pushes what they want people to believe, and they don't see the truth of what's really going on. Um, I would say read the Bible, because Israel has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and the promised land to the Jews for, so long, since the 40 years in the desert and all of the things. So um the whole, that Israel just came about not that long ago is just not factual. Um I also feel that if you really look at Israel, they have Arabs and Palestinians and Muslims and Christians and everyone. It's a melting pot, and they all coexist together. And the Arabs hold positions of power in government in Israel. Um, they're not ethnically cleansing. I've heard this term about them ethnically cleansing Gaza and Palestine and all of these things, and it's just not, it's not the case. The problem is not the Palestinians versus the Jews or the Israelis. It's the terrorist organizations
Excellent.
against the Jews, and actually everybody. I heard I don't remember who said it, but Israel's just the beginning. Like, they don't want to stop at Israel. They want to come for America. They want to come for any country that isn't Muslim and isn't them. And they want to eradicate us. And another, you know, quote I'd heard from someone a few times is, if they laid down their if they gave up the hostages and laid down their arms, like, there would be peace. If the Jews did that, they would literally slaughter all of the Israelis. Like, it just, they people don't understand that it's something that they're ingrained, like, they teach to hate, the radicals. I'm not talking about, you know Muslims and Arabs that aren't radicalized, but the radicals who are backed by billionaires in Iran and you know these terrible people. It's a smaller group, but they are very powerful,
Yeah.
and they want death to Christians and Jews and all of people who aren't them. And because Israel is God's country, that is why Israel is so wanted, because they want to kill God. They want to kill Jesus. That's, it's just a spiritual warfare. That's when people are like, why is this happening? I was like, because it's spiritual. It's not so, I mean, it's simple in my eyes, because it's between the devil and God, and the devil rules the earth right now, and that's just the way it is until Jesus comes back. But when people don't believe that, it's, they think like, why is this happening, and all of these things. And it's, I it's sad. I look at it and it's very sad for me, because I love all of them. Like, nobody's sitting here going, I want Palestinians to be hurt, or I want the Jews to be hurt. Like, it would be beautiful if we could all just realize who our common enemy is and try to
Right.
take that person out, or that group out together.
Well, I shared
But
with you before we went on, right? Late last week before Shabbat, I guess, or maybe whenever we
mhm,
were chatting, I shared with you my peace plan, which is basically
yeah,
that.
it's
Uh,
beautiful. I
yeah,
love it. And with, obviously with God, all things are possible. And
correct.
I believe that to my core.
Right.
So I think your plan is a great plan. And I hope it can happen if
Well,
it's meant to happen.
that will be a cliffhanger for our next segment, because we're going to take a break, and then anyone who wants to know more about the solution for peace in Gaza can go to the website solutionforpeaceingaza.com. But let's take another quick break before we begin to wrap up, Ashley.
Sounds good.
Okay, wow, Ashley, there's so much. I feel like we're old friends.
Yeah, it's
And I'm
great.
really enjoying this. I look forward to doing this in person one day. And I have
Yeah.
to say, I didn't mention our mutual friend. I'm always careful on people's privacy, but our mutual friend Melissa,
Yeah, Melissa.
who introduced us. So shout out and thanks to Melissa
Yeah,
for
she's
that.
awesome.
She is. Actually, so it's funny, the friend who was just here, who I alluded to, speaking of Israel as her spiritual homeland, is our mutual friend Marzi, who maybe you've heard of. She was born in Iran, became a Christian in Iran,
Oh, I love
and
that.
was sentenced to death
Oh
because
my
she became a
gosh.
Christian. And she
Yeah,
was just here because we're working on a really cool project to bring Christians to participate in the olive harvest this fall.
that's
As
beautiful.
symbolic economically, because so much of the agricultural industry has been damaged because of the war, but also not spiritually. Spiritually, yes. Symbolically, because here I am, Jonathan, the Orthodox Jew, quoting Romans 11, but talking about the significance of the root supporting the branch, and the root and the tree that is spoken of is the olive tree, and everything, and all the oil for anointing, and everything that we're talking about biblically is olive oil. So we're going to be
Love it.
doing big things. And Melissa, it's funny how these things come together.
Yeah.
Um,
When is that? When is the olive what was it called again?
well, our program is called properly Root and Branch,
Right.
and the olive harvest in
The
Israel
olive heart.
is in the
Yeah.
fall, and we are waiting on. As I speak to you, by the time this comes out, we'll have a lot more details. And in fact, Saturday night, Israel time, we're going to be doing a briefing about
Oh,
what the
cool.
plans
Do,
are.
do
But
you know when it is?
the last week of October, first week of November. You want to come pick olives with your daughter?
I actually would love to do that. I think I I let me check my show schedule, but I think I might be
Cool.
not competing.
That would be great.
And if I could, I would love to come.
Great. Actually, you just went to an area that I want to potentially finish with
Oh,
about
okay.
what's
Sorry.
no, it's good about what's next. But
Yeah.
and I didn't even expect to go. I kind of think about where I want to go with these conversations, but they're totally not scripted. But when I asked you in terms of what you want people to know, this week, it's it's heartbreaking for me. It's so hard. 10 months, we're 10 months into war. Tomorrow,
Yeah.
as we have this conversation, Ariel Bibas, who is turning 5 years old, he's the big one of the two redhead boys that were kidnapped.
Yeah.
And a week and a half ago, I stood in front of their house with all of their toys exactly as they, and you have a little child as well. You can
Yeah.
relate. All of their toys on the front lawn, just like they were
Ugh,
when they
that's
were all
so sad.
kidnapped 10 months ago. It's just so heartbreaking. And now you're in Paris with the rest of the Israeli team having
Hmm.
to deal with security issues that no one's ever dealt with in history. Forget that you're the first, I've dubbed you the first Israeli Christian to
Yeah, yeah.
compete, but also imminently waiting for some mega attack, which I've referred to. I told you right before we began speaking that I'm writing an article that'll be out soon called Armageddon Notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Um, what's impacted you, Ashlee, Christian Israeli, Olympian or not, in the last 10 months with the war?
Oof. Just how fallen our world is. I think it's just so heartbreaking that people can do the things that they can do, but then I just turn it back and go, they're not, they're demons. Like people might think I'm crazy, but I believe in my faith 110%. And I believe that it's all demonic. And, I if the original sin hadn't happened, this would not be happening, kind of thing. And I just have to keep believing that, God will, provide, and he will, either allow, what's happening to happen for a greater purpose, or um save, intervene. I don't know, but I just feel like it's very testing of your faith what's happened in the last 10 months. And um I think as Israelis, they're the strongest people I've ever seen, and it's brought them together. Maybe um I don't know. It's just really hard to to wrap my head around everything that's happened since October 7th. It's and what it's means to me to be able to at least bring a little bit of hope and I don't know, hope and strength, I guess.
As much as any Israelis are okay. I do a lot of media interviews and I just say we're all traumatized. And these are
Yeah.
traumas that will stay with us for the rest of our lives, mine, and even I believe my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like the Holocaust. I mean, it's
uh,
mind blowing. I think about how we're in the 21st century and we're dealing with this kind of anti-Semitism and hatred and I just it I don't know. I don't know how on one hand people can be saying, you know, we have to be so accepting of all of these things and include everybody and love and then have the same people turning around and spewing hatred and from the river to the sea and all of these horrible things and I just they just it just doesn't go together. I'm it's it yeah, it's traumatizing.
I mean, October 7th and the war that's ensued and 1,200 people, not just killed, but massacred and in inhuman ways.
Brutalized.
Right, in
It's
human ways, and you used the word before, and it's correct, demonic. It is. Um, Plus the fact that we still have 115 hostages, eight of whom are American. Some are alive, some are not alive.
how
Um,
America hasn't come. I just like that to me is just mind blowing.
well,
I yeah, we're supposed to
actually,
be allies. I don't.
so you know what? I want you to go further with that, but I also wanted to ask you so I don't forget. We live it. You know, this is part of being an Israeli in Israel, and it
Yeah,
affects Israelis overseas. Of course, it does. You have family here, but I'd love for you to also talk about what not just let's talk a bit about America's support for Israel, but also how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked you are to see the anti-Semitism erupting in the US specifically.
I mean, I would say I'm shocked, but not
Uh,
because again, I think that it's just setting the stage for what's to come in the end times. Like that's so yes, I'm shocked that it's so in our faces. Like but then on the other flip side, I'm not really shocked by anything that the devil can can bring out. Um so I yeah, I'm also really disappointed in America's response because we're supposed to be a huge ally to Israel. And I feel like they're not really, they're saying it, but they're not backing their words up with action.
Unpack that. Give me some examples.
Well, I think this administration, that's a whole different story. But I think this administration says one thing, but then, you know, Kamala Harris's daughter is raised $8 million for a terrorist organization. I believe I don't know if it's I don't know if it was
To give her
Hamas or
credit, it's stepdaughter. They're not genetically
stepdaughter.
related. Yes.
Sorry, yes. But you know, I think it's how can you have you know your stepchild raising money for the killing of Jews and then be supporting Israel and we feel like that's the person that's going to keep Israel safe. Like I just don't understand how that can go hand in hand. I feel like they're kind of uh maybe they want it that way. Maybe that's their big agenda is they want Israel to go down too. So it'd be nice to get someone in there that actually will make sure Israel stays safe.
Okay. So we need to have a conversation on US politics before
Yeah,
November
that's
5th, but we'll come back to that. Is there any one thing in the course of the last um 10 months that just stands out as that red flag for you in terms of America's lack of response and support of Israel?
Yeah, that we still have hostages there. Like that they
Excellent.
still they how do we have hostages there still? And 5 Americans. That's that's unbelievable to me. I just it's infuriating,
Yeah.
actually. It's disgusting. It
Yeah,
makes me so angry.
I'm glad you picked that one. That wasn't even where I would think of going, but I'm glad you picked that one because that's not even something that you can say that was done or articulated that was wrong. It's a lack of fortitude. And I read, and it's true. If the US had truly wanted all of the hostages free and put its money where its mouth is, the United States has the influence with Qatar to say there will be severe consequences for you as a country, and it won't be Israel taking out the terrorists that are living in seven-star hotels in Qatar, but it'll be the U.S. Excellent. I'm glad you mentioned that. Um,
Yeah, it's just simple. I think people try to make it more complicated too. I think for me it's very simple.
yeah,
And I go back to the whole demonic everything. It's not a joke. I mean, I laugh because it's like I'm saying it again, you know, but I believe it in my gut that it's just demons. They're
yeah.
just freaking, that's their plan, is to blow up the world pretty much.
Wow. Thank you. You know, it may sound condescending, and it's certainly not coming from that, but I'm so proud to have you as a fellow
Oh,
Israeli. I'm
thank
so
you.
grateful, really.
No, it's not condescending at all.
We need
I'm
more.
honored. I
Yeah,
love Israel. I love the people of Israel. I mean, I am like, I have Jewish blood in me. Like, I'm
yeah,
not, I don't consider myself not Jewish. I'm just half Jewish, and I'm a Christian Jew, Israeli. So I'm, I feel like also, I think hopefully the Jewish Israelis realize that us as Christians, even if we're not Israeli Christians, we are so behind Israel. Like,
yeah.
that is our hometown. Like, that is our our home,
Spiritual
like our
home.
spiritual home. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, it is. I never feel closer to the Lord than when I am in Israel, like ever. And I cannot wait to go back and obviously see my family, who, God willing, stays safe.
Okay.
Um, and two of my cousins are in, you know,
I wanted to ask you about
the
your family.
army. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and
It's personal.
they're amazing. They're wonderful people, and they're fighters. And I can't wait to go back, and hopefully I can go back
Yeah.
for the olive
For the olive harvest, that'll be excellent.
harvest. Yeah.
So, other than participating in the Root and Branch project in October, what are Ashlee Bond's plans coming up? We didn't even talk about it. So, the Israel team, which is silly of me, Team Israel finished in ninth place, which is
Yeah.
a really good showing, but you had to
Yeah.
step out of the individual competition. You were sharing with me right before we started recording. How come that happened?
Um, you know, my horse and I did the last Olympics in Tokyo. We had an amazing showing. We were 11th individually. He owes me absolutely nothing. I've had him since he was 6 years old. He's 13. He jumped the first day like a rock star. We helped the team get to the finals, which was something none of us expected. Huge accomplishment, since the last games we didn't even finish as a team, and it's only our second Olympics ever as a team. So to beat teams like Switzerland and Spain and Mexico and all of these teams that have been around for over 100 years is really a huge accomplishment. My horse the second day took a really bad stumble after fence 9 behind, and then he proceeded to not jump like he usually does. He was jumping to the right. I completed the course. I took him out. He trotted sound. He wasn't limping or anything, but I was very, very concerned. And I just felt as though there was no reason to put him through any more of these big jumps, because it is not just big jumping, it's the biggest jumping we
Yes.
will ever see outside of like World Equestrian Games, European Championships, or an Olympics. So I just felt it was in the best interest of my horse to not do it. He has nothing to prove. I still have things to prove for myself down the road, and for Israel. I would love, for the team to win a medal for Israel. That is our goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully in LA or, Australia or something. But I think with how amazing our jump was from the last Olympics to this Olympics, it's very plausible that we could then jump onto that podium for the next one. So, and it's in my hometown in Los Angeles. So
Right.
that would be even more fitting. And I yeah, I always want to put my horse first. I mean, they don't have a voice. We have to be their voice. And everything he was telling me was that I've had enough. So fortunately we had a fourth person there, Isabella Rusikoff. So she'll get to jump the individual,
Oh,
and I'll be
okay.
cheering on. Yeah. And Daniel Blumen and Robin Muir will be jumping individually. So it's still exciting, and I will be rooting for them.
Amazing. And this
Yeah.
is the only sport, right, that you have to worry about another living being, and that, in this case, a horse, and how they're doing well, because I suppose on all other teams there's an alternate. There's someone else, another person who can step in if in the relay one isn't well or something like that.
Yeah. We still have an alternate, but it's a horse rider alternate.
Uh,
Yeah. So it's the same, but not just human.
and in Los Angeles, because I know nothing about horses, in Los Angeles, your horse is 6 now. Will your horse be still
Oh, no,
eligible?
no, no. He was 6. He's 13 now.
Oh, 13.
So when I got him, he was 6.
Okay.
So he won't do another Olympics or
Okay.
championship. Like, I'll just
Okay.
do him in, obviously the step lower is the 5-star competitions, which is
Got
still
it.
huge, and all the things.
Got
I
it.
have an amazing 8-year-old that my goal is for the next championships and hopefully for LA. But it is a long time between then and now. So we'll see. But I do,
Wow.
I do think he is the one for that.
It's so fascinating to me, Ashley. I never wasn't even on my radar, and of course, until 3 years ago, nor was there an Israeli Olympic team. But
Hmm.
really fascinating. I'm super excited to have connected with you, and let you share to the whole world, as you are proudly waving the blue and white flag as you
Yes.
do. And I'm super grateful. Wow, to Melissa, to
Thank
you for
you.
making time,
Yes.
and we'll continue to pray for just bigger and better things. Before I do my wrap up, is there anything that's on your heart that or that we didn't cover that you just want to share with everybody?
Um, no, I mean, we covered a lot, which was beautiful, and I love that. I think just praying for obviously the release of the hostages, and for their families, and for some peace and understanding, maybe, that the scales fall from their eyes and they can see Israel for actually what it really is, and for the terrorist organizations for what they really are, and realize that this is not a battle between, Gaza or Palestinians and Israelis, that it's a battle between, these sick terrorists and everybody else,
Yeah,
so that we can all come together and, you know, try to just put this away, put this to bed, get this, make this be, you know, or heal it, actually, is what I
yeah,
was thinking. And um yeah, and come together and just realize that love should conquer all at the end of the day, with the Lord. And yeah, that's what
well,
I pray for.
you may not live here, but just simply from that answer, you're clearly inseparably one of us, and I'm so grateful and proud.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ashley, for
you.
making time today. I always wrap up in a somewhat of a self-deprecating way, telling people that if they stay with us, I got to change this line because it's not true, but that they deserve a reward. Our conversation is a reward enough. But beginning a year ago, we adapted our program, which I refer to as From Jonathan's Bookshelf, encouraging people to like and make comment and share the link to this program and all the inspiration from Zion episodes. And up until a year ago, for 2.5 years, we had always offered some other book. I'm looking at my bookshelf and all the great books about Israel and Judaism that I read and sharing those. But a year ago, I don't even think I shared it with you, Ashlee. We, the Genesis 123 Foundation, published our own book called Israel the
Oh, wow.
Miracle, 75 essays by Christian leaders from all over the world as a coffee table book. So it's stunning and it's inspiring. And for the last year, we've been offering a free copy, $75 value, to anyone who comments, likes, and shares the episode for this program. So I'm encouraging everyone to please go ahead and do
That's
that.
beautiful.
And I also always am grateful for our friends who sponsor the program, the Willow Run Greenhouse in Culpeper, Virginia, and tell people if you're ever driving through Culpeper, Virginia, definitely pop in and thank them for helping make conversations like this possible, and also our friends, the Coin family. Like all of our programs, Inspiration from Zion and all of the Genesis 123 Foundation programs are made possible by donations. So I always want to encourage people to please consider joining us and help continue build bridges. And I want to just dedicate this episode in honor of our friend Melissa, who's so great.
She
And
is.
just for opening this door and being the connector that she is, and so much that she does also behind the scenes. And if you or anyone else in the future watching or listening would like to sponsor a future episode in honor of their angel or a memory of a loved one or special occasion, please be in touch at inspirationfromzion@gmail.com. We always love to hear your comments as part of a dialogue, especially about traditional Judaism for our Ask the Rabbi programs. So you can be in touch here. And finally, again, please share this program with others who will also find it of interest, and continue to join us right here as we bring you more meaningful conversations about unique topics relating to Israel that you won't hear anywhere else. I pray that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy wherever you are in the world, and send my blessings from right here in the Judean mountains. God bless you.
God bless you.